You are now entering the Mysterious Historians podcast. Soccer, an ancient art that has been played since men had feet and balls. Today, I sit down with Mr. Alfie Bowman to discuss the art of footballing. But first, do you want your candles to just be candles? Are you tired of them smelling like cinnamon and hobos? At It's Just Candles USA, they only sell real candles, column-shaped, scentless candles that provide a small circumference of light, just like candles were meant to, available in white and ecru. And now, on to our show. Mr. Bowman, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yep, it's quite an honor to be on your show, talking about footy. You can call it footy, soccer, only in the US. But yeah, I'm pretty much a big buff of it. I'm a primary school level 4 teacher, but I'm a huge footy buff.
I detect an accent. Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Crescent on the Banks. It's northern, sort of near Sheffield, a little bit east of Manchester. So it's a little cottage town. It's maybe like 4,000 people, so it's not very big. We don't have a team. There's no team there. So when I go to see some matches, I'll go to Leeds, or I'll go to I'll go see Manchester City, not United, God forbid. But that's quite a trek for me. So that takes I have to change trains maybe 4 or 5 times to get to that game. So yeah.
Why the lust for soccer? What is your connection to the game? Well,
I always wanted to play. When I was a young lad, I always wanted to play, but it just wasn't in for me. It was not, I did not have any coordination. The only type of coordination I really have is for ping pong, but it doesn't even translate to tennis. So ping pong is really the only game I can play, frankly. But I loved soccer. I always wanted to play. Put me on the team, Ma. Put me on the team, Pa. And they always would, but I never, ever did much on the pitch. Like I just didn't know where the ball was going or how to kick it. And my instep, it just didn't work. But I love the game and I love watching it.
Yeah, I mean, you're presently sitting, but I'm guessing you're 5'2"?
I'm 5'1". It's
Okay,
good guess. It's a high chair. I'm 5'1", so everybody in my family's tall. Like my father's 6'2", my mom is 6 foot, my brother's 6'6", my sister's 6'4".
You can stop listing heights. Tell me about your emotional reaction to the game, your favorite part, the ball, the suspense, the kicking. What connects you so much to soccer that you abandoned your future ping pong career?
Well, I wish I had a ping pong career, to tell you the truth. I was never that good. I feel like there's so much tension. Every moment something could... I mean, the score's never high, but there's always a lot of tension. You know, is the ball going to go that way? Is it going to go up in the air? Is it going to go backwards, forwards, left, right? You never know what's going to happen. It's very spontaneous. It never stops. There's a halftime, but for 45 minutes, it doesn't stop. And they're just running. Where are they going to go? Is he going to run that way? Is that guy going to go this way? So for me, now I have a bit of a lazy eye, so it takes a lot of concentration to watch that ball.
I would imagine.
Yeah. In ping pong, for some reason, my prominent eye can follow that ball. In soccer, I have to use...
Both eyes.
Both of my eyes. I'm pointing to them. So this one's looking over there probably. I don't know where it looks half the time. But when you're watching soccer, you got to use both eyes, and it really takes a lot of concentration for me. So that ups the intensity as well.
When we went and saw that game, you napped for 4 days afterwards.
Exhausted. exhausted. And that was such a wonderful gift, getting me them tickets. Yes, I was exhausted. I couldn't work, can't cook, can't do much, nothing. All I have to do is sleep and get my energy back.
Yeah, you were basically hibernating post-game.
Right. Well, what happens is my brain is working probably 4 or 5 times harder than your brain when I have to watch. When I have to watch a football game. Mm-hmm. It just is absolutely tiring and taxing. So I maybe can watch a game a week, but then I have a couple days off.
Maybe you should stop watching.
I could never stop. Could never stop watching. Because it's part of me. It's my DNA. It's in me. And I yearn for it. I don't even... when I'm at school teaching, all I'm thinking about is football or soccer. And half the children don't know what I'm teaching.
Well, and your eye is looking at the door.
It's true. My eye, that's a funny joke. My eye's looking at the door. I'm barely teaching them much of anything because my mind is on footy, and it's a lot of things. If you look at me when I'm in the classroom, it's what the heck is going on with that chap? His mind's not in the room. His kids are all running around like crazy people, but I have to do it. It's part of me.
Well, one must have a passion. Let's get into the history of soccer. Where did it start? How old is this game?
Well, you're talking to the right person. So, let's start off China.
Ooh.
Like early, maybe, I don't even know, 1600s, maybe even earlier.
I think it was a lot earlier.
Possibly. But
I don't want to correct you. You're the expert.
Well, I don't know for sure. I think it was maybe 1600s, maybe 1200s.
I thought it was ancient China. So
you might. I have to look back on that one. But they played a game called Cujo, where they took like pebbles and sticks and feathers and things, and they took leather from a cow. And they sewed up all the sticks and stones. Now, it hurt their foot, but they got used to it, and they made big, strong shoes or sandals to be able to kick this ball. But they they sewed all that stuff up into a piece of leather that was round, and that was the birth of Cujo, which was basically the beginning of football. And the Chinese started that.
Is that the end of the story, or do we progress forward in
That's
history?
the end of the Chinese part. Then it kind of went nowhere. Today the Chinese have really monopolized on like their own economy and the producing of products and things, and they spread it across the world really. But for football, they didn't do it. They kind of just dropped the ball.
There you go.
Like that, as you might say. They dropped the ball, and then who picked it up?
The British.
The British. Us. We picked it up. We said there was one. I believe now this might be wrong. I think it's a true story. I believe it to be a true story. But there was a chap. Don't know, nobody knows his name, but he traveled to the Asian country of China at the time, and he figured out and witnessed this ball that they were using, right? And then he came back to England and tried to start it there, but it really didn't catch on. But what did catch on was the spirit of it, the spirit. And I think in the 1800s, maybe even the early 90s, I'm not quite sure on the dates, but they started playing some version of that football that they were playing in China. Does that make sense?
Well, I was under the impression that various cultures throughout the world have been playing with balls and feet, and that China's just the earliest record of it. That I don't think someone directly went to China, saw this game, and brought it back to England.
So you don't think the story is accurate?
Well, you don't think the story is accurate. You really didn't sell it to me with any kind of certainty.
Well, I do. I'm a little bit hesitant on it, but I believe it's part of the law.
Now, the British did come up with the official rules of soccer.
Right.
Tell me those rules. How would I, if I was joining the game, what should I know?
Well, the rules in the beginning were real crazy. Like, you can use your hands. You can't. You go to another village, and they were like, you can't use your hands. And then they go to another village, and they'd say, you can pick it up and punt it as far as you want. And then the other town would say, you can't punt. What are you doing? Red cards, yellow cards. There used to be green cards and blue cards. Everybody had different color cards. And then they would come to each village and they'd play each other, and they didn't know what the rules were. You can't use your hands. And then they would be, yes, you can use your hands. It was crazy. Then something happened. I don't know what.
I'm so glad I asked you to tell me the history of soccer.
I'm a soccer buff, so luckily I'm here to answer questions. But something happened, and they all decided, they got on the same page and decided we're going to have the same rules or we're never going to be able to play together.
Well, I'm glad to know the very specific information of something happened.
Right, so that's what they did. They decided if you go over there, you're too far. We'll call it offsides. If you go over there, that's out of bounds. You got to throw it in. And some people were like, "What's a throw in?" And then they had to show them what it was. And so they got all on the same page to really try and figure out what are the real rules. Does that make sense?
It does. As a child, I attempted to play soccer.
You had troubles too.
I did. I never understood offsides. Explain it to me.
Well, offsides is like, you can't go cherry picking. You can't stand in front of the goal and just be like, I'm going to pass it here, right? First of all, that's not fair.
Why?
Because, you can't just stand there and do nothing. You got a whole team. You got to figure out how to work together. So if you run, I'm not quite sure how. It's hard to explain. If you run and the guy or the lady kicks the ball and you're too far past a certain area, they'll raise their little flags on the side and say offsides, right? I don't know why or how it happens, but it happens a lot. And if you're too far from some of the other players, I think what it is really is that if you're more than like 10 yards from someone else and someone kicks it to you, you're offsides. That's what I think it is. I might be wrong, but that's what I believe when I watch it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, I'm going to clarify that you no longer are giving me answers, you're giving me guesses.
I won't say they're true guesses. Mm-hmm. I will say that they're guesstimates.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say that they're pretty close to being accurate, but they might not be 100%.
Can you guesstimate why the art of soccer, or football as you call it,
right,
is so popular worldwide?
Oh, spreading.
But not in America.
Well, it's getting there. Not really, but sort of. You know what it is? What I really think it is? I think that people in America want to see Chili's commercials, and they want to see commercials about automobiles, and they want to see commercials about French fries and frozen foods and diabetes medications. And what they don't want to do is sit and watch a game. Everybody else in the world, they want to sit and watch something. But the Americans, they want to watch people selling something to them. And when you're watching, this is a pretty honest answer. Mm-hmm. When you're watching football in the United States, you get so tired. You're like, where's the break? Where's the ad? Does that make sense?
It does. You mentioned Chili's, and I know that they have given you a cease and desist. Let's just talk about that.
There's one Chili's in northern England, and I went to it because I thought, well, what is this? This looks like a kind of like interesting pub-type restaurant. And I went in, and not a single screen had a soccer game. I know it's an American company. Not a single screen. So I went up to the manager, and I said, "What is going on? You're playing American football and hockey and lacrosse on your screens where you're in England, chap." And the man said to me, and he was American, he said, "This is our restaurant. We can do what we want." And I said, "No, you can't. You're in England, the birthplace of football." And he said, "I don't care. Get out." And I said, "I'm still eating my chili fries." And he said, "You are never allowed in here." It was a very, very explosive reaction. And it might have been because I had thrown salt in his eyes seconds before. But I threw salt in his eyes. I got a letter 2 weeks later from some sort of judicial board of Chili's. I don't know who it was. And they said, "You can never set foot in a Chili's again." And I said, "F you, I'm never coming back anyway."
And you've been harassing them ever since.
Well, I don't know where you read that.
Your blog.
I did write it on my blog.
I keep saying soccer. You keep saying football. Why do we call it soccer? Where did the word soccer come from?
That's a wonderful question, and there's not a definitive answer.
Or there is, but you don't know it.
I think what happened, there might have been a word that had soccer in it, like, let's go outside and play kick a sock or something like that. Like they took a sock and they put sticks and stones in it and kicked it around, and little kids would say, "Get the sock out, get the sock," and then they started saying soccer, and then they were like, "Why are we calling it soccer? We don't need to play with a sock. We could play with a ball. People are making balls now." And then soccer went away, and then they started kicking with their feet, which they were always doing. And then they said, "Why don't we call it football? We're not playing handball, right? We're playing football." So they started using that word. But in America, they went back to maybe the original word, soccer. So it's almost like New Testament, Old Testament. And the U.S., what is using the Old Testament version of the word, and England is using the New Testament. Does that make sense?
Not really. Turns out soccer is short for association football. They shortened association and added an Moving on. What is a candle but a wussy little stick on fire, they say. But a candle is so much more than that. It's a string and wax, and it can make a bubble bath, a romantic evening, or a satanic ritual pop. At It's Just Candles USA, we don't care what you use your candles for, as long as you use them in America. And now, back to our show. I would love to know, who do you think is or are the greatest soccer players of all time?
That's a big question, because you got to talk about, are you talking about skill? Are you talking about speed? Are you talking about using their head? I mean, what are you talking about?
I guess I mean scoring points, considered by the worldwide community of soccer aficionados to be the greatest player of all time. I don't want to put conditions on it. I just want your opinion.
My personal opinion. Well, here's the thing, and not a lot of people are going to agree with me on this. You got people like Beckham, Messi. You got people like Pele and Ronaldo. Huge people over the years, best. But and Puskas, if you know who that is from
I do not.
Hungary. These are real people. I'm not joking around here. It's not a guesstimate. But there's one chap that played for a tiny club in Germany who never won nothing, who I followed religiously. His name was Heinz Bergmann. Heinz Bergmann was one of the most underrated football soccer players in history. He didn't have a lot of goals, never really scored, played maybe half a game here and there. Sometimes they put him in goal, sometimes not. Not a great passer, but he has so much energy. He would come out on that field and run like he was a stallion, like he couldn't stop. And a lot of times nobody passed to him But a lot of times he would play an entire half and never get a touch on the ball. But so much joy he had, so much happiness he had in his face. If you watch clips of him, just smiling all the time.
So when you qualify someone being the best player of all time, it has nothing to do with skill or points or being in any way good at the sport. It's entirely to do with attitude.
Well, it's all attitude.
Now, you only mentioned men. Women's soccer is very popular in the U.S., and it seems like our female soccer players are far superior to our male soccer players. What are your thoughts on women's soccer?
Well, I have to say, women's soccer is, if you want to categorize this...
Did you say the word categorize?
If you wanted to categorize it...
There we go.
Yeah. If you want to categorize it, women's soccer is like light years. Imagine this. Imagine that soccer came to England for the men in 1800s or something. It's almost like soccer came to England for the women in the 1200s, because they're like light years away from what the men can do. It's like when you watch a women's soccer game, it's like they're one person. They're one mind. Like they have some sort of ability to talk to each other through their brains or something, because nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's faking a fall and crying. And this is the truth. Women it's like they're playing soccer and it's 2085.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
That's a pretty honest answer.
Now, when I asked you earlier before we started recording if you had any kind of special lady in your life, you started...
You never asked me that.
Oh, I did, and you started weeping. Do you not remember?
Oh, right. I think I blocked it out.
Tell me. You spoke so beautifully of women's abilities. Do you have a special woman in your life?
Well, it's funny, really. It's kind of an estimate again.
You don't know if you have a special woman in your life?
It's a guesstimate. I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's a lady friend who I see her every day. She's another teacher at the school. She's just delightful. So much joy, so much, very smiley, which is what I look for in a person, as you know. And we've never spoken, so maybe she's noticed me, but I don't really think so, because usually I hide in a corner.
Why is the ball black and white?
It's not always black and white, but yeah, it's mostly black and white. I think it's so they can see it.
Oh.
Because the grass is green, they can't make a green ball, right? Because you never see it. A pink ball, maybe a pink ball could work, but if you're colorblind, this is my guesstimate of what it is. If you're a player and you're colorblind, like I am, you will have a hard time saying a green ball or a blue ball or a red ball or a yellow ball. So if they make it black and white, then anybody let's say 50% of the players on the field, that's 11, are colorblind. Who's going to win? It depends how many colorblind players are on each side. So it's a real disadvantage if you make a ball a different color. For me, whenever I see a game and there's a different, say they had it's a fancy game or something, like a semi-final or something like that, and they got a red ball, I can't watch the game because I don't know where the ball is. I can't see the color red.
So it blends into the green field?
I just don't see it. It's like it's invisible.
It's like a ghost ball.
Right, all I see is people kicking with their feet. I can guesstimate what they're doing and where the ball is, but I can't see it.
Well, you would think that it doesn't really matter what color it is as long as you can see shapes and figures.
I can't see shapes that are colored. So if you showed me a green triangle, it would be like it was invisible. It'd be like, what's on the page? Nothing. And this is difficult because I teach a lot of geometry.
I was going to say, it's interesting that with this affliction you teach young children.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very difficult. I can only teach them in black and white.
I'm a novice to soccer. I've never seen a soccer game. I don't understand it. Tell me the basics. You mentioned the points you can score.
Right.
You mentioned how many quarters do we have? Walk me through it.
Okay, well, look, this is my understanding of it. So it's two halves, right? And it's usually around 45 minutes. This is the truth. And sometimes it goes later if someone gets hurt or they're faking it or someone really gets hurt or like someone's stalling and they're not throwing the ball in and they're like, well, you got to add another 40 seconds because that guy wouldn't throw the ball in. So it's around 45 minutes. That's the truth. Basically, it's just a game of keep away. Have you ever played keep away?
Oh, we had a cousin who was kept away from the family.
Yeah, imagine that, but with grown people, not children. Well, sometimes children play soccer, of course, but it's like grown people playing keep away, and if you can get it in that person's net, then you get a point. It used to be 4 points.
What do you think is the greatest moment in soccer history?
Are you talking about like plays? Are you talking about speed? Are you talking about like somebody like did something like kick it in the hair really high?
Why are you so afraid of answering questions?
Well, I just want to know what specifically you're asking.
I'm specifically asking, what do you think in your mind is the greatest moment in soccer history?
The greatest moment in soccer history is probably when I have to say there's multiple great moments, but I always love it when they run out onto the field, right, and they stand in a line, women, men, and they all shake hands.
Well, that happens.
That happens
in
every game.
game.
Every game.
So I want a singular moment, a moment when two rival teams win up against each other that no one thought should go up against each other. An underdog team won. Someone died on the field.
That's horrible.
Well, you don't have to say that. I just want an iconic moment. If someone made a list, I just want you to make a choice that involves an actual moment in soccer/football history.
That's a great question. I think the most iconic moment, and it's really probably like a negative moment, is when Maradona. You ever heard of the hand of God?
I have not.
Okay, it's not literally God.
I didn't think it was.
You didn't? Some people I talk to about this think, oh, it's God came down and put his hand in the middle of a football game. Is that what you thought?
I did not, because God doesn't exist.
He was in the middle of a soccer game, and he put his arm up, and it looked like he was heading it, but it was actually his hand. And he got it in the goal, and they won. And it's such an iconic, negatively iconic moment. Is that the kind of answer you're looking for?
Yes. Why was he allowed to win if his hand
Because
hit
they
the ball?
didn't see it. The referees, tons of people on that side of the stadium saw it, but the other people on the other half of the stadium couldn't see it, and the ref was on that side of the stadium, so he couldn't see it because he was on the wrong side. If he had been standing on the other side of the field and on the other side of the stadium, he would have seen that he had used his hand, but he was not placed correctly on the field, so he didn't see it. Does that make sense?
It does. What was the fallout? Was this man disqualified from soccer? Did people...
No, he won. He went on to win, but he was a huge drug addict, so I guess that...
What were the words you just said?
He was a huge drug addict.
One more time.
Drug addict.
Your accent is intriguing. You, at the beginning of our interview, mentioned Manchester United and how you would never go to a Manchester United game. Why? What is your problem with them?
It's just a bad taste in my mouth.
Oh.
You know when you go to like a restaurant, and you're like, this food tastes weird, like Chili's. It just tastes strange. You're like, what's up? What they put too much salt in here? They didn't use the right agreements. You're like, I got to leave. It just doesn't taste right. Like at Chili's, they have what's it called? It's like an onion bloom. You know what I'm talking about?
Bloomin' onion?
Bloomin' onion.
Though I think that's Outback
Artichoke.
Steakhouse.
What is it?
It's a deep fried onion of some sort.
They don't. I thought I ate it at Chili's.
I think they have it at all chain restaurants.
Oh, okay. All right. I never seen it at Burger King, but that's fine.
Well, sit down chain.
Oh, sit down with, okay.
Gimmicky,
Right.
American style food.
Right. Cease and desist restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. When I ate there, even though I didn't want to leave, I had a taste in my mouth, and that's how I feel when I go and see if I ever see Manchester United on television, on the telly, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to be sick.
Which country has the greatest teams? Who consistently across the board is the best team for soccer?
Now, what are you talking about? Like skill? Are you talking about speed? Like who uses
I'm talking
the
about
heads?
winning. Who wins consistently?
The English teams win pretty consistently. Spanish teams win a lot. And Italy has a lot of goals. They get a lot of goals in there. The German team's pretty good, pretty hefty. And a lot of them. A lot of teams.
Can you pick one country for me, please?
I probably have to say probably Spain.
Could we get a definite? Could you say Spain?
Spain, maybe.
No.
Pretty much Spain.
Do they win the most World
They
Cups?
win a lot. They don't win the most World Cups. Argentina's won a lot.
Well, we never mentioned Argentina.
Oh, there's there's the rest of the world out there we never mentioned. We could talk about the South American teams.
We could. I would love for you to talk about them.
Well, I don't know much about them.
When I reached out and asked for a soccer expert, you said you knew everything about soccer.
I know a lot of stuff.
Well, when you learn a fact, do you ever then look it up?
No, it goes right in. It goes right in.
And then there's no follow-up at all?
No, because I read it, and then it's in there.
Yes.
No, I don't need to go back. I have a brain.
Well, just for future reference, when someone says they're an expert in something, they know all of it. They know the nitty-gritty. They know the big facts, the small facts. They know the follow-up questions.
Right.
They know the dates.
Right. I gave you 1800s.
Well, I believe that was inaccurate and broad at the same time.
Well, nobody really knows, do they?
They do.
Who?
Historians.
Maybe they know.
No, I think they do know.
I think a lot of times people make it seem like they know more than they do.
Well, like you did when you said you would do this episode.
Well, I said I would do it because I do know a lot. Do I know more than you?
I don't think you do.
It might be right.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap it up.
It was an absolute pleasure, absolute delight, and I hope you learned a little bit about footy today.
I did indeed learn a little about football today.
Very good.
Mr. Alfie Bowman, where can people find you?
If you go to the Chili's website and you plug in locations, I've actually been able to, I infiltrated the account, and if you go to locations, it'll take you to my Chili's, dismember Chili's account. Not dismember like brutally kill people, but like dismember their website and do away with Chili's. So if you go to locations in the Chili website, it will take you to my Chili's dismember site.
That is a lot of steps. And to you, dear listener, go outside, kick a ball around with your foot, hit it with your head, see what you can do with the other parts of your body besides your hands. Andrew, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Tell the community of people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Andrew the Friedman, and I don't post a lot.
I'm very uninteresting.
I'm extremely uninteresting. Yeah, you can find me. I'm on a show. Is that the kind of stuff you want?
Sure.
I'm on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I am on a new show on Netflix coming out next year called The Residents.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's a murder mystery in the White House. Yeah.
A comedy or just a straightforward
It's
drama?
an hour-long sort of dramedy.
Exciting.
Yeah. Fun people.
And this will air before our show, so they can see you in Hatch of Horrors at Dynasty Typewriter on October 29th.
Which will be extremely fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come see it.
For those of you, if you want more Mysterious Historian, it's the.mysterious.historian on TikTok and the Mysterious Historian 666 on YouTube. Is that it, Andrew? Anything?
I think that's it.
Andrew is not from England. If you
I'm not. I know that accent was really real.
Goodbye.